Host path volume is a type of volume that mounts a file or directory from host node machine's file system into the pod. This can be useful for accessing host node resources from within a pod, as well as it can be useful for sharing data between containers running on different nodes. Okay, in that case, your next question I'm sure would be how it is different from emptyDir. Well, emptyDir volume is not persistent and the data stored inside it is lost as soon as the pod is terminated. In contrast, host path volume is persistent and the data stored in it is retained even if the pod is terminated. Because in the case of host path, the data gets stored in the host node's file system. Now it is time to try the host path volume and see ourselves in what way we can make use of it. Okay, it is actually very simple. So earlier this second container we created purely for trying the emptyDir volume. We don't need it anymore, so I'm just deleting it. Okay, now previously we created this volume called emptyDir and its limit is this, right? I am removing it and press Ctrl space, type host path, and there we go. So we want to use this. Let me press enter. As you can see, to this we need to specify a path which is basically a directory or file available on your host node machine, right? Now if I go to my Kubernetes cluster, so you can see we have got one Kubernetes node, but while creating this Kubernetes cluster, I did not particularly do anything to be able to connect to this virtual machine. So for me, there is no way to SSH to this node. Neither I am in mood to experiment and somehow connect to this VM. Okay. So I want to make use of a simple trick here. This is a Ubuntu based virtual machine. I can verify this from the Azure portal. Okay. And what we know about Ubuntu virtual machines is there is a directory called home. We just need a directory for our experiment. So just I can specify it and I expect my files to be getting stored in this directory. This sounds good? Okay. No need to change anything. Whatever volume mount we created or this path we modified, we still need it, right? So with this simple change, we are good to test whether host path is working for us or no. Alright, so clearing my screen. Okay, it's configured. Let me describe this. Okay, here's the volume. This sounds good. No worries, clearing my screen. Now, let me list down the pods. Okay. I want to connect to the second pod, so kubectl exec. You can see with the host path also we are successfully able to create our output file. And I am very much sure you are thinking what exactly has changed. Similarly, we were creating the file with the emptyDir also. Now also the file is getting created into this mounted path. What exactly has changed? Well, let me show you. For this, we have to come out of this pod. Remember, for emptyDir, we created another container within this pod and that pod was able to access this file. While the benefit we get with the host path volume is any other pod which has nothing to do with this pod will also be able to make use of this volume. I'm sure you have this question. How do you establish this fact that other pods are also able to access this volume? Well, let me tell you, I appreciate your question. Okay, you don't have to blindly believe me. And for you, I'm gonna prove it. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let me create another file here. I'll say host path pod okay, some name we have to give. Let me use Visual Studio Code's IntelliSense to generate a pod manifest file and I'll just quickly clean it. to be used to make it useful for our purpose. Okay, so I'll say, okay, busybox image is busybox. Command, as I told earlier, we can use sleep infinity and this pod will never die automatically. Okay, now we need to create a volume. So I'm creating this volume, same as HostPath volume which we created for the previous one, right? Similarly, we have created a volume over here and we want to mount this volume also, right? So let me mount it at this level for this pod. Okay, now let me quickly explain what exactly we are trying to do. Okay, so this same volume, output volume, at the home directory we created in the busybox web scraper pod and wrote some file content at this location, right? Now in this second pod we are using the same directory and the volume name, and inside this this volume we are mounting to the container busybox. If we are able to access the file system and the files, means this pod is able to access the file system of this pod, right? This is exactly what we want to achieve. Now let me try to create this pod. Created. Awesome. cd, which directory we have to go? We have to go to temp and then hit an ls cd output. There we go. As you can see, this file is available over here, right? What this means is on the same node, another pod is also able to access this file and its content, of course, right? Now you might be wondering, how come we are so sure that we will be able to access this host path? Because if our pod gets scheduled on some other node, we will not be able to access this volume anymore, right? Well, the reason behind this confidence is we have a single node cluster. So whatever pod is getting created has to be created on this pod only. This is why we know both the pods are running on the same node and we will be able to access the host path volume. If there were multiple pods, this may or may not be the case. Alright, my dear students, I hope with this explanation you are now clear on what exactly is the host path volume and how you can make use of this. For our requirement, it is pretty good. So with this, our output file will be stored in the node virtual machine. We don't often delete the virtual machines as such, but there is one problem still there. What is that? Well, in your Kubernetes cluster, you can have more than one node. For example, let's say you have 50 nodes in your Kubernetes cluster. Now, with this approach, HostPath will create a volume on whichever node the pod is running. Your HTML file may be lying on any of those 50 virtual machines. Not an ideal situation to be in. Rather, what you want is one persistent storage where all different pods, no matter on which node they are running, are sending their files. So that anytime you want to see the web scraping data, you'll simply go to that location, check out the different files available over there and come out. Let's explore this ideal storage option for our requirement in the next lecture. See you there. Take care. Thank you.